In a first since Israel's war on Gaza began, 2 Israeli human rights organizations have used the word genocide to describe the devastation across the Strip. They're hoping to influence other international organizations to do the same. BTselem's report, that it calls Our Genocide, argues that the Israeli policy towards Palestinians in Gaza has shifted from repression and control to destruction and annihilation.
The report we are publishing today is one we never imagined we would have to write. But in recent months, we have been witnessing a reality that has left us no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
The report says that hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have sustained severe bodily and mental harm, with medical care remaining critically inadequate. It argues that the extensive casualties in Gaza are a result of deliberate policies, including indiscriminate bombing of populated areas, using technology to generate targets, ordering shoot-to-kill policies against Palestinians, among them children. It says Israel is gradually extending its genocidal practices to areas where Palestinians live under its control and occupation. In the occupied West Bank, the report suggests that a more lethal open-fire policy and so-called kill zones have been imported from Gaza to the occupied West Bank, or what the report calls as Gazafication.
The regime is the same regime, the army is the same army, and there is no mechanism, either local or international, to offer protection to Palestinians.
The death toll in Gaza is nearly 60,000. These figures do not include deaths from diseases or malnutrition, described as indirect, but all a direct result of Israel's destruction of living conditions and blocking food and essential supplies from entering Gaza. A collapsed water system and starvation of 2.2 million Palestinians as a weapon of war. Physicians for Human Rights report investigated the health sector. It concludes that the destruction of Gaza's healthcare system is deliberate, calculated, and systematic. Following the pattern, scale, and nature of Israeli attacks, the reports concluded that there's a deliberate policy of making Gaza uninhabitable. In the occupied West Bank, Israel directly controls nearly every aspect of Palestinian life. BTselem's report says this control further intensifies oppression and dispossession. Both reports from the Israeli rights organizations include witness testimonies and evidence, and they conclude what's happening in Gaza is a genocide, and the world needs to stop it. Nida Ibrahim, Al Jazeera.
Let's hear now from Itamar Mann, who's a professor of international law at the University of Haifa and one of the co-authors of the Physicians for Human Rights report. He says it lays bare the extent of Israel's war crimes.
Our work here is, I think, a document that will be important in asserting accountability for an aspect of the genocide that is rather oftentimes less visible. When we think of hunger or we think of the victims of bombing, we normally are reminded of the terrible pictures that have been circulating for the last 22 months. But health is not something that is easily photographed, and it's often private. It belongs to people in their old age, to children, and it is connected to aspects of hunger and other aspects. And so it requires this careful consideration, which we are providing. We're doing this with a heavy heart. We're doing this while not forgetting the victims of October 7th, but we reached the conclusion that it is no longer possible to avoid, namely that this is ultimately exactly what Article 2C of the Genocide Convention describes when it talks about deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Just to summarize, we're thinking of conditions that will, no matter what happens in the next few weeks politically, whether there is aid in a sufficient level that flows into Gaza, and whether there is a ceasefire, hopefully. These health conditions will continue, long into the future. They have this kind of long-term aspect. When you destroy an entire system, people are not able to get aid and are becoming victims of this campaign also years from now, when Gaza actually doesn't have a functioning hospital, when medicine is not available, and when a generation of doctors and medical personnel has basically been killed. One may say is something that may happen in war, but we show here that there is something different. So under international law, hospitals have a heightened form of protection. And we describe how hospitals were targeted time and time again with very thin evidence, ultimately, that Hamas was using it as a military target. As a matter of assumption, I'm willing to assume that they were used as military facilities for certain periods of time. But what happened in the hospitals was not limited to the elimination of a military target. It was destruction of hospitals for the long term and basically terminally. So in this context, when people are hungry and they cannot reach a hospital and they may have background conditions, it's no longer some collateral damage. It's part of a plan. And whoever did this, whoever targeted hospital after hospital and medical facility after medical facility, while also denying water and denying fuel, knew exactly what they're doing. And they knew exactly the effect that this would have on Gaza's population, on the Palestinian people, and on Gaza's children, perhaps primarily.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.